So how confident are you that Iran is truly standing down at this point?
Not at all. I think, obviously, what action President Trump took against General Soleimani was more than justified. They've been at war with us since 1979. General Soleimani, as is widely reported, had the blood on his hands of at least 600 courageous men and women in the U.S. from the IEDs he supplied. But beyond that, without Iran and General Soleimani, I think Assad probably would have been defeated in Syria. That's about 500,000 people got slaughtered in that war as well.
So what are you expecting from Iran next?
So Soleimani is a really bad character. Well, Iran can take two paths. They can become a normal nation, stop their dedicated effort to become a nuclear power, and stop spreading terror throughout the world. It's a pretty easy choice. You can tell that they're not willing to do that, though, because what sane nation would put up with that level of isolation and that severe of economic sanctions if they didn't have this apocalyptic view of the world and they wanted a nuclear weapon? So we need to recognize that. That's what the Obama administration did not recognize. So they did that awful deal that put about $150 billion into the hands of the Iranian regime, which they've used to spread more terror throughout the world. President Trump finally had enough of it.
Well, the House voted to limit the president's war powers. How would you vote on something similar in the Senate?
Well, there's a real fault line here in terms of what individuals believe the War Powers Act is constitutional versus those of us that don't think it is constitutional. It's never been tested. No president has ever agreed that Congress can limit his war power. Yes, it's true the Constitution says Congress declares war, and we have the power of the purse. But the Constitution also vests the commander-in-chief role as well as the role of conducting foreign policy with the president. And the fact of the matter is, unless there is some massive attack like Pearl Harbor, like 9/11, there have been other exceptions to this, but generally, you're going to have a very difficult time when time is short to really have a president run to Congress and try and get authorization for use of military force.
So are you saying you would vote no on that?
Oh, yeah. What I will probably do is offer an amendment to, first of all, get every U.S. senator on the record, because everybody says, we can't allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Okay, fine. What are you willing to do about it? So I'm crafting an amendment right now that will put everybody on record to basically pre-authorize the President of the United States, once, and we have to write the language, once it's pretty clear that Iran is racing toward developing a nuclear weapon. Don't know exactly the time frame or what other parts of that amendment will have, but I want people on record. I would like to basically pre-authorize the use of military force if it's pretty apparent that Iran is going to become a nuclear power. We don't want that to happen.
But does anything concern you with this president's decision-making with that?
We vest that power in a president. And what concerns me is if you hamstring any president, not just this one, but future presidents as well, being able to react to intelligence that the administration literally can't share with the country and with most members of Congress. It ends up being so incredibly significant. I don't know what people were concerned about following that briefing. I was there. You have General Milley, you have Secretary Esper, Secretary Pompeo, and CIA Director Haspel. These are intelligent, capable, serious, and sober people. They were laying out the case of why they had to act. As General Milley said, had we not acted, we would have been culpably negligent. But people say, well, it wasn't eminent. You're not going to get a cable or an email directed to all of General Soleimani's commanders in the field saying, okay, here's who we're going to attack, here's how we're going to attack it, here's the date. It doesn't work that way.
But when President Obama was in office, you had said that you wanted him to come to Congress before dealing with the Bo Bergdahl situation. So do you feel differently now that the president shouldn't have to come to Congress?
So the fact of the matter is, when I got a call from Samantha Powers, who was one of my contacts in the administration after Syria crossed the red line, my advice was have the president act, and I will support the president's action, because you couldn't go to Congress and expect us to pass an authorization for use of military force, and of course we couldn't. So you have to recognize the reality of the situation. Public opinion does not want to get involved in wars. That is the biggest restraint any president has. And if you have any president go too far beyond public opinion, Congress can always pull back the funding authority. If a president takes us into a military situation that the American people strongly disagree with, we can cut off his funding very quickly.
And it wouldn't be too late.
To me, that would be a better way of approaching. Well, what could be too late is if we hamstring the president and he isn't able to act in sometimes very short notice based on intelligence that something really bad is going to happen. Everybody criticized President Bush because he didn't act on the intelligence prior to 9/11. There were indications. You had Saudi Arabians that were getting flight training in Minneapolis, but we had stovepipes and silos. And again, it just doesn't come out on a piece of paper laying it all out. Intelligence is not that neat. It's pretty messy, and you have to really rely on the experience and integrity of those individuals. And again, you take a look at Gina Haspel and Secretary Pompeo, Secretary Esper, and General Milley. I've got a great deal of confidence in those individuals.
I want to get your take on this. So last week, Utah Senator Mike Lee, a Republican, called the classified briefing the worst he's seen. I want to play you his response and then get your reaction. So let's watch this.
They had to leave after 75 minutes while they're in the process of telling us that we need to be good little boys and girls and run along and not debate this in public. I find that absolutely insane.
What do you think about what he said?
Well, again, I was impressed with the briefing. I think those individuals we were briefed by are serious, sober, capable individuals. And to me, they certainly laid out a case. I understand why President Trump took the action he took. Now, what you're seeing, again, is the fault line of individuals who simply don't believe or they believe that Congress actually has powers under the War Power Act. That has never been tested constitutionally.
Should there be a debate about this?
And I would recommend, yes.
About what to do in Iraq?
Which is why I will offer an amendment under this War Powers resolution asking for pre-authorization to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power and obtaining a nuclear weapon. It'll be very interesting to see how every senator that I'm aware of has already said we can't ever let that happen. Well, put your vote where your rhetoric is and see whether we actually will pre-authorize the president based on intelligence that is, with high levels of confidence, whether we'll grant the president, any president, not just Trump, but future presidents, the authority to make sure that Iran does not become a nuclear power. Understand, look at North Korea. They don't have an apocalyptic view of the world in terms of their regime. Iran does. They chant death to America. They chant death to Israel.
But do enough people trust the president to put that in his hands?
The American people make that decision.
What about the sanctions? He just announced new sanctions. Do you think that will work?
I think we're ratcheting up. But what President Trump is doing is what President Obama should have done. The sanctions back in, I believe it was 2012, were having an effect. But what President Obama did is he relieved the pressure of those sanctions before Iran came to the table in good faith to actually give up their nuclear weapon program. The problem with JCPOA, that agreement, it did not prevent Iran long-term from becoming a nuclear power. And it put in the hands of Iran, the largest state-sponsored terror, about $150 billion of resources that they have used to continue the slaughter in Syria and Yemen and destabilize the region.
What about cyber attacks? How concerned are you, considering you're the chairman of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee? How concerned are you about cyber attacks going forward?
Concerned enough to have a briefing with the DHS and all the components between the Commerce Committee and my committee. So,
what do we need to know about it?
Well, first of all, make sure that you use good cyber hygiene. You really can prevent about 90+% of ransomware attacks, for example, by, first of all, not using pirated software so you get automatic updates, but do things like dual authentication. I mean, we really can provide much stronger cyber defenses, but people are sloppy and they're not using all the tools at their disposal. But no, we're highly concerned about what Iran may or may not do, which is why President Trump is putting more and more pressure. And I mean, at what point does Iran cross the line? And I hope they don't. I pray they don't. I mean, if you saw my press release, I said I pray nobody got killed because I was concerned about what the consequences of that will be. Iran has to be concerned. I think that was pretty evident in terms of what their response was.
And Iraq wants U.S. troops out. What do you think?
Well, some of the Shia in Iraq want U.S. troops out. The Kurds don't, the Sunnis don't, and there are plenty of level-headed Shia that don't want the U.S. out. It's part of the story that's not being told. We did win that war. We were greeted as liberators until General Soleimani and Iran came in, started training and equipping Shia militia back in the 2004, 5, 6 level, and they blew up that peace. I think had it not been for Soleimani and Iran, I think you'd see a functioning multi-ethnic democracy in Iraq, but Iran and General Soleimani prevented that from happening.
What about the Iran nuclear deal? I mean, President Trump wants allies to get out of it. Do you think that they would? And how do you negotiate that?
Iran is saying they're not following it, and isn't it interesting that they were able to break out and start enriching uranium so fast? I don't believe they've ever been in compliance. I don't think inspections were ever good enough.
Do you think other nations would get out?
We'll see. What the good news about America is we do control the global financial system, and we can impose sanctions, secondary sanctions, and we can keep increasing the pain until the mullahs or other people in Iranian society come to their senses and go, you know, there's a real easy way out of this. Let's give up our ambitions to become a nuclear power, and let's stop sponsoring state terror, and let's concentrate on our economy and becoming a normal country in the world. I mean, it's pretty basic what they need to do, and the fact that they won't do that over the course of 40 years tells you really all you need to know about how menacing, how malign, how evil Iran truly is.
There's so much to talk about. We have to get to impeachment. So Speaker Pelosi just announced that she'll be sending the articles of impeachment this upcoming week. When do you think the trial could start?
Well, if that's true, and my guess it probably will, it just shows, again, the political nature of all this. I'm sure she's going to hold those articles until Democrat senators who are going to be on the debate stage have a chance to be in that debate and then get back in time for, you know, the start of the trial. This has all been politics. It's been bizarre, the strategy she's employed. You know, they all said, Democrats, I mean, we had to rush to judgment. We couldn't take the time because President Trump is such a threat to national security. And they vote for impeachment, and then they sit on them for weeks.
Do you have your mind made up about impeachment?
Well, what I've seen so far certainly does not rise to the level of impeachment.
But do you have an open mind going forward? Are you one of those who says, I'm deciding
I'll always
now?
have an open mind, but again, I find it very difficult to believe that they're going to show something different than what has already been on the record.
Do you want to hear from former National Security Advisor John Bolton?
We'll make that decision afterwards. I mean, what we need to do is go under the start of what we did under the Clinton impeachment, which is hear from the House managers, hear from the White House. Then there will be a period where senators ask questions. Then we'll pause and we'll decide, and we'll have like a big old vote-a-rama, determine are we going to call witnesses or not, or are we just going to literally say we've heard enough, nothing's really going to change anybody's mind, let's be done with this and move forward to a final vote. I can't predict what's going to happen.
From someone like that who seems to be very involved?
There are all kinds of people I want to hear from, which is why I'm...
Who else? Who could you tell us?
Well, I think, first of all, the president has a right to cross-examine the whistleblower. I think we need to find out what all was happening there, what kind of collaboration, what kind of cooperation was there. I think the president should be able to lay out the case. I think the president has a right to lay out the case of why he was suspicious that things were happening in Ukraine in terms of corruption. And that includes corruption possibly with Vice President and Hunter Biden. I don't know exactly what happened. I've seen enough myself that there are some real problems there.
But wouldn't that encourage other whistleblowers to not come forward?
There is no right to remain anonymous as a whistleblower. The IG can't tell you who their name is, but the IG Act actually contemplates, kind of basic tenet of American jurisprudence, the right to confront your accuser. And so it contemplates if it comes into some kind of court trial or some kind of impeachment trial, that whoever stands accused should be able to question and cross-examine who that whistleblower is.
Senator Johnson, we covered a lot today. Thank you.
Have a good day.